be where your background is.
Yeah, it looks amazing, doesn't it?
I definitely wouldn't be in a suit though.
Actually, I need to change this background.
I think we're live now.
Yes, we are live now. So we can get straight into it. Welcome, everyone. We are once again back with our emotional well-being series. And today we have got the pleasure, once again, is our guest speaker, Kelli Hurley, who is, I don't know how to describe, but the topic will describe her very well. She is an energy healer, intuitive spiritual guide, and a transformational coach. So, and she's also an international author. So this is just few words that I have said. But today's topic is all about stress energetics. So today, as listeners, we all are going through lots of stress, some or the other, but it is the energy that can create or that can really make your stress level go down or up. So your energy is really, really attuned with this stress. So I want to not talk more about that, but I got a little feeling and I want to understand as well my stress levels with this topic today, and also how I can transform through my energy process or through my level of information or guide. I can become my own guide. So let's dwell into this topic. And once again, I've got Beck, who is my absolute supporter and also a great co-host with this show, Emotional Wellbeing. As I always say, we are all one. And it's a freedom of free-spirited, which is what we bring these topics under this umbrella, that emotional well-being is very important, but every single time emotional well-being has to be checked in by ourselves. And what more than to bring up a topic which is called stress energetics. So energy is all about, so what is energy? I don't know. What is stress? Let's uncover all these things today with our beautiful guest speaker, Kelli Hurley, who I now go back to Beck, who can introduce her a little bit, and then we can get straight into the topic.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you. I'm so excited to be here today with you, Kelli, to, I guess, to unravel stress energetics. So yeah, can you start us off? What is stress energetics?
So stress energetics to me, well, it's something that's actually a topic that's very close to my heart because it's something that actually transformed my life. As an energy healer, learning the foundations of everything is energy, but our nervous system runs on nerves, which basically are constantly talking through energy, through currents, through electricity, and this runs through those nerves. As we know, if we have nerve damage, we lose contact with part of our body. But the nervous system runs through that spinal cavity, and it has a specific signature. So when we're in a stress response, there's certain pathways and certain circuits that actually go off in the body. And by actually learning where those are and how to actually calm those, we can actually calm the body's response. For me, stress energetics also has been really important because I really realize in our society and, you know, our lifestyles, it's like our nervous system hasn't learned to adjust or upgrade to this. We constantly have new things in our environment, and that's what the nervous system does, is assesses anything new as to whether it's a threat. So by new chemicals in our food, or whether it's, you know, a radio frequency from our phone or our Wi-Fi, I mean, constantly everywhere we go, we're interacting with new things. And this system has now become so overactive that it has become detrimental to most people. And then they end up in extreme amounts of stress or anxiety. We also end up in depression. Something's going on.
Yeah, the energetics are wild. I think we have some.
Something else is wanting to share as well.
Yes.
Come in, everyone, share some stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's to start off, like, you know, you said that, you know, these energies or this stress energetics, you know, is basically how we can help people from going from no stress level or from stress level to no stress level, and how you can change that by sheer, understanding our system. So tell us something more about, like, how does this stress in a way, like we are talking about nervous system, or you are talking about the body energy and other energies, how do they really play a role in this human life? I know you are not a doctor, but you are definitely a guide to this whole body and mind kind of soul kind of that we experience. Give us some more insights on that a little.
So, I mean, with everything, everything's got a unique energy frequency, right? Everything has energy. That's what makes anything that's physical and matter, like Einstein said, E equals mc squared. So when we're in a stress response, there is a lower vibrational aspect to it, where our energy field will actually condense. So we actually become more matter and actually less energy. So we are actually heavier by sense. So that's why people feel heavy, right? As well as that in the body, because it's usually a survival response and it's like a fight and flight being triggered in somewhat, it actually siphons energy from a lot of the other energetic systems inside the body. So the chakras, the meridian systems, they all actually get drained so that this system can run. But the other thing is that it actually siphons energy from the autonomic systems, which are our immune system and our digestion, and yeah, you name it, it's there, right? And so everything gets affected by this system that's running overdrive. For us to live in higher states and be happier in states of happiness and ecstatic or bliss or joy, they're all higher vibrational states, and they are actually adding energy to the body. So that's why we feel more energetic. We have this higher vibe. We're excited for life, right? And our energy field actually expands. So there's this actual difference in the energetics, and most people would understand that. But I guess for me, it's like the stress responses in the body. We know that there's specific pathways that also activate to take over the chakras and the meridians and things like that. So a lot of people don't know how to pacify, or don't even know those things exist, right? And so for me, I used to notice there were symptoms that I would get. I mean, one, I'd have the head chaos because there's all this energy in my head and my body's in a state of overwhelm, looking for, going over stories or looking for things that might not work out. So what I call is red flags. But then there's also, I used to find that I would feel the heaviness. I'd feel tension in my head. I'd start to get a sore neck. And, people, when they're stressed, they naturally start to do this. And this is actually interesting because our actual body is partly touching the pathway, the energetic circuit that runs in this system, right? So our body's actually trying to pacify and calm that system. When people are a lot uncomfortable, they cross their arms. That's also another energy system that there's a unique pathway there. And so our bodies are actually quite intelligent, and they're trying to work with those systems, but we don't know where the whole line of that energetics go, right? So it's those kind of things, if we want to live, and everyone wants to feel better, be happier, be able to control this nervous system, control their triggers, control their patterns. And most people's suffering comes from this head chaos of all these stories that go on, but also not being able to, control their triggers, or not control the things that block them emotionally, like their belief systems, and all that is energetics as well.
Right.
Would you say that as individuals, we have our own stress part, like energetic path? Like, is it an individual pattern, or as beings, we're our stress energetics are very similar and all alike?
Basically, almost everyone has the same pathways in the meridian systems that are actually the ones that are linked to stress, right? And so there's also specific meridian systems that run through the body. If we start to look at like radiant circuits will vary from person to person, right? So we all can have pathways, and some of those pathways, they could be lit up stronger in some people. So, for instance, we have a stress response, and this particular, what I call is the triple warmer meridian system, will go off with everyone. But somebody in anxiety will have different radiant circuits will have a different energetic frequency underlining, because they're a little bit more looking into what the future is and looking for protection in that system, compared to someone in depression who is really stuck and anchored in more of a past situation. They almost lose the will for life. They're not looking forward. They're kind of trying to hide from that. And so it's a different energy there, but we all can have those pathways. It's really specific to what trauma we've experienced and what pathways are activated is probably the right word to say. So what pathways are activated, which ones are actually functioning highly. A really good way to look at it is these pathways, say some of them will act more like an artery system, so they have a lot more current in them, they have a lot more energy flowing through them, and then others can be just like little vessels and veins, right? And if we start to teach the body how to run the energy on these vessels and veins, we can start to actually use those pathways and increase. So that's the idea around resetting the nervous system, because that state of happiness or joy exists still inside the body, but those pathways are basically deactivated or small little vessels, and these other ones are like these highways siphoning the energy, and the body's, we're creatures of habit, so that energy automatically goes to the pathway that's the quickest and easiest, and that seems to be the stress response.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So just on that, I want to jump here. Sorry, Beck.
Yeah.
The stress versus anxiety, or everybody has got a different level of anxiety. I may be anxious with little things, which you may not be anxious. Mm-hmm. And that creates stress when I'm anxious. So it can create stress for me. So different levels of anxiety, different levels of stress. So how in your world would you say the energy can drive or can make this recognition of this whole thing, and then we can change it, or we can get adjusted or adapted to it, something that can work for us in a simple terms? How do you relieve your stress? You said you can go from stress to blissful, but to going from stress to blissful, you need to first understand your stress level and your anxiety level. Are they really, really stressful, or you are just stressing out for the sake of it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, and you're right, everyone, there's different levels of stress and different things that trigger us, because again, that's those unique pathways that are opened up for individuals, usually through experiences, things that, beliefs of where we need to, have coping mechanisms, which is also the nervous system. But when we look at, I guess, the different levels, if we start to become present, so we know when this anxiety is going off and we actually understand, we can actually then tell the body, okay, no, by flushing the system, by flushing those nervous systems that are circuits for everybody, and the body sort of sits there and goes, hang on, so I'm not supposed to be stressing, but I normally stress here. And so what we're doing is starting to calm that system. And so being present is really important with any of this, being actually able to witness, where are we stressing, where are we actually in states of anxiety or depression, because I actually experience anxiety myself at times as well. And though anxiety, we don't have to be defined by that. We can say, okay, that's like a moment drifting through. What is that? Why am I feeling that? It's always fear. It's always, are we fearful of walking in and how something is going to be received, or how we are going to be seen, or, how that experience might turn out. Will that job work out? So we sit there in this energy, and you're right. We all have different ones, it can even be relationships and dating, because we've had trauma in that space. By witnessing that, we can then start to teach the body, no, I don't need to go there, and using other pathways, and start to either go reactivate the old ones or create new neuron ones, like new neuron pathways, and that just creates consistency. So for me, the tools and techniques that I use, they're all energetics. Everything's energy anyway, even when we do breath work and things like that. But for me, it's teaching the body to actually increase those veins to vessels by simple tools, because when I experience these things, they're usually at times where, I couldn't sit down and do an hour's meditation and go to a breath work facilitator's place or go and get a healing. I had kids running around, there's chaos in my life, and I'm like, or I'm in the shopping center and my head's ready to explode, and it's like, what can I use in these moments that are simple tools but are actually accessing that energy that can keep resetting my body. And I mean, for some people that are in severe trauma, these systems need to be worked over and over again, and they're simple. That's what I mean. They're not, it's not hard things to do, but it's that consistency of increasing the energy and resetting the body to say, okay, I'm safe, okay, I'm calming this system, and then using other things that raise our vibration. So something that's really important is to acknowledge that when we're in stress, anxiety, depression, whatever it is, it's a beta frequency. So anytime we can, we pacify and calm that system, but then if we can shift ourselves into an alpha frequency, which is through love and through pleasure, things like that. And so it's even just thinking about something we love, we straight away change the frequency. That does not exist. Doesn't mean in 5 minutes that won't pop back up. And then again, you go back to resetting that. So some people, this process works really fast, and other people, they really need to practice it with consistency. I mean, for myself, I know I went through so much abuse and went through such a long stage of stress that I couldn't just go from being stressed every day to all of a sudden being extremely blissful and ecstatic. I had to retrain my body to be there. And eventually I got to states of joy and happiness that I had never experienced before, that it actually was like, oh, I'm, going to court and representing myself, and I'm not freaking out at all right now. I'm really calm in this situation. And I sat there in that day and I was like, wow, 2 years ago, I would have been beside myself. I couldn't even take myself to that place, So it was like, these processes do work. It's just our willingness to continue. I mean, there's things that happen when we reset the nervous system as well, when we start to experience new energy and we feel different, that can activate the nervous system again, because the body doesn't know what that is. It's unknown again. We're reaching a new state, and anything new activates the nervous system. So it becomes like, oh, there's that thing. I need to calm my system again, so that you don't go into a place of chaos and questioning, is this going to work? Is it, oh, maybe it's not. Now, all these things are happening. I found for myself a big thing that was as I became more higher vibrational and more present with myself, which is part of that awakening process and a lot of that spirituality, right? But as we become more awake, we begin to see the things that are occurring. We start to see everywhere we're stressing and everywhere we're being anxious and all the patterns that are not serving us, right? And then we could easily be thinking, oh, this isn't working, but it's actually that our consciousness is now at a place to show us the system to hack it. We can only change the pattern in the pattern. We can only do something about it. It's like a computer screen or a program, and the program has to play for you to hack that and change that program. But so many people, when they get to that awakening stage and that conscious observing where they see everything, they freak out and go, oh, none of this is working. I just feel like there's more stuff going on. And that's actually the stage of destruction, and before destruction, then we go into the void of an unknown, the new energy. And then we implement something which is much higher and something that's ecstatic. And we start to follow bliss, which is a lot to do with our soul's purpose and things like that.
Right. Okay. So would you say that the energy, when you talk about the blissful and the energy, how do you recognize, is energy means blissful state? Would you say?
Well, bliss is an energy frequency too. It's just such a higher vibration too, and stress is such a low vibration. If we're looking at it on a ladder, most people won't go straight to bliss. We're in heightened states of stress. And, if you're looking at a ladder, you can't get from the bottom step to the 10th step in one jump. You can generally jump a few, but with these processes, you can get to that 10th step much faster because you're learning how to hack the system. You're learning what's going to occur and how do you manage those things in that process. Yeah. But blissfulness is really just an ecstatic state of happiness, right? It's when we're so present in our lives and we feel everything in life. I so often see people that come to me and they're like, they don't see joy in anything anymore. And I say to them, for me, years ago, I didn't in a lot of ways too. And now I can just sit there and admire the trees and feel the skin on the wind on my skin and start to feel really joyful. But that took time for my body to awaken to that space, because when I was in stress, I was actually quite numb. And my mind was not focusing on any of that. My mind was focusing directly on the red flags or the chaos or the story or the attachment. And so the blinkers were on, and it's not energetically, doesn't want to take any of that in, because it's just honing in on what is the issue.
So that also means, just further to that, to confirm, like, when we eat lots of chocolates, we say we are getting energy. So does it mean that when we are blissful or when we are happy, then we can recognize our energy, that we are in a good state of energy? Is that what?
Oh, definitely. Okay. Definitely. I mean, it's, we feel that. I mean, you feel it in, people, sometimes we don't acknowledge these smaller things, going on. When we're in deep stress, we know we're in deep stress. Our lives, we look at it as terrible, or, when we get to states of ecstatic bliss and such states of, for me, then, because I opened so many pathways in my body, got used to holding higher vibrations, some of the experiences I would actually have or do have in my body are something I never didn't understand. I used to see, people like Joe Dispenza explain these states of, where you're here, but you're not here. And that, and it's almost like you're connected to everything, that state is when you're there, you're like, wow, this is what life is. And it's moving through me right now. But you're not going to feel that when you're in a state of stress. And it takes time. Most people want to just feel better. They don't know, they're not necessarily going, I want to be blissful. They want to just be happy. They just want to feel a little bit better. They want to be able to manage their lives, or manage the things that are going on in their environment in a better way. And so they're just looking to feel better. And then it just starts to, those steps, we start to go from one step to the other, and we desire more, and we desire more happiness. We desire more love. We want to laugh more. All these things become natural, because it's our human nature to feel good, not to be stressed.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah, I really resonated with you when you were saying that as you awaken to, the stresses, you start to, see more. And then at times you can sort of feel like there's more stresses. Because that destructiveness, that there's so much, but I guess it's just coming back to finding the safety in each stress and being able to move through each layer until you're at a state that you can just jump from step to step and sort of get out of that despair.
Yeah, and that one itself too, like I say to my clients, when we actually realize that what's happening and that we're becoming more awakened and we're seeing the program, and that it's a consciousness that we're actually being able to hack the system, instead of shaming ourselves or judging ourselves or going, we actually are like, oh, thank you. I see this now. And I have skills. I have the awareness. I have tools to just do the thing, but many people don't even get that guidance to that point. And when they're doing work to try and feel better, and all of a sudden they feel like they're getting weighed down with all these things, and it's like, oh, now I'm noticing I've got that going that's triggering me, and I've got that creates anxiety, and I didn't even know I behaved in that way. And we just go into a shaming, and the shame itself and judgment is actually a very low vibration, and shame and judgment actually pushes unconscious or subconscious will actually take it and push it down into our body more. So it creates more density in the body and creates more blocks. The biggest problem is that when that happens, it distorts within our energy field, and then it comes out in a distorted way. So now that same thing's now going to appear like it did in the first instance, but also in other ways, because all it is energy trying to move out of the body. It just wants to be acknowledged. It just needs to rise. And a lot of time, those emotions only take a few minutes to feel, allow them to come to the top. And then using simple techniques, we move them out of the body. And then we reset the nervous system and we set ourselves into a higher vibration. And all of a sudden, we've allowed that. And the next time, it doesn't mean that that's not going to appear again at some stage, because there's a neuron pathway that exists, but we have the ability to change that. And for me, I say to my clients, if you get 80% of them, you're going to create massive changes in your energetics. You will all of a sudden look back and go, wow, I didn't get triggered by all those things, but I did get triggered by that one. For instance, I don't get triggered by my ex anymore like I used to, where I used to get all that abuse from. But once in a blue moon, because I know where my weaknesses are, he can penetrate me and I will feel that, or he will do something that I feel is not okay, but that's being human. We're going to still feel sadness sometimes. We're still going to feel grief. We're still going to get angry occasionally because something was unjustified or whatever it is. But having tools also emotionally, I work energetically. So how do I move those emotions energetically from my body? How do I sit with that and acknowledge what that was and why was I triggered around that if it was a new instance? And this just kind of reminds me that there's also this place of healing where we can manage and heal and release something from a previous experience in our timeline. And then we go into a new situation, it could be a year or two. And so often people, then we go into a situation and we have a similar response. And then we go, oh, I obviously didn't heal that thing back there. And I'm like, but you're actually in a whole different situation. This is actually your response to this situation. And you actually need to be present with what you feel now. Don't worry about the past, because it's right here now that you just move that energy or acknowledge what it needs to teach you, and then you move on. And so that's a big one I find, is a loop in the spiritual community and things like that, that we're always like looking back at our past about, I didn't heal that. Obviously, I still have to do work there, instead of acknowledging what actually triggered us in the now.
Yeah, that's a very big thing that comes up in my sort of space as well, is that where you'll continue to be handed the same lessons until you learn the lesson. Mm-hmm. And it's and just how you phrase it, then it's really important that well, that lesson has already been done, you've been there, it's now the scenario, it may be similar but it's completely different. You're not the same person you were even the week prior. So yeah, that's really important to remember, that it's a new lesson to be able to move through and shift the energy, and I guess reflect on the lessons and the tools that you've been able to pick up from the previous experience and apply to the new experience. But it's a whole new scenario, so let's continue to shift and move forward.
Yeah, but also, as you said, like subconsciously we do a lot of things, and subconsciously we don't live in present. We always look back or we look forward. So that creates anxiety. That creates a little bit of hope, expectation, and stress on ourselves. And then our energy level is triggered around that. That's what I feel after listening to you. And today's lifestyle, if I have to ask all the listeners who are listening, they are living different kinds of life, and we are into a different environment. The lifestyle that everybody has got today is quite different to what they must have or in the past few years, or 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Obviously they are struggling, they are doing their best. But what would you say to adapt to these new lifestyles that we have got? Like someone is dealing with technology, only talking on technology, like we are talking today. But then that's different lifestyle. Everybody has got different. In that scenario, the challenges that we face today, the energy, the anxiety, and that level, how do we bring back that energy to constantly move that energy to the way we want, rather than drifting subconsciously and then thinking that, oh, I didn't get this, I didn't get that, and then creating more misery for human life? And
I think with it, when we start to work our nervous system, so our nervous system governs everything we do. And so when we start to actually work with the nervous system at first, it's like when we learned to drive a car or do our shoelaces up, we had to practice it. We had to, and eventually it just became unconscious that we just do the things. We can just drive without having to think. We got to turn a corner, we put the indicator on. We're not conscious about that, right? So when we want to be able to approach life and things that are new in our environment and not have to constantly be thinking, we have needed to actually prime the nervous system before so that it unconsciously understands how to reset. So it goes, oh, this is new. Oh, is there anything here? And a lot of that comes down to learning how to, have different belief systems around the unknown and trusting in the path in front of us. But that comes down to working your beliefs, which is energetic as well. Though I sort of look at it that, these systems are really about concreting them in so that they just reset naturally. Like my nervous system resets itself consistently and constantly. So it doesn't matter what new thing comes into my environment, unless it really is something that it's going to, is life-threatening or is something I should be scared about, something that should create fear or anxiety in my body. My nervous system has now learned to just reset, and that's really powerful because we are now in control of the nervous system instead of it being in control of us, or it's now subconscious and we've trained it. So this is where I was saying at the beginning about training the nervous system, upgrading it to be able to handle today's lifestyle. When we were kids, we came into this life and most people, not everyone, but most people, everything was new. We didn't just walk around in anxiety and stress and freaking out about anything, or, that we're meeting a new person or we're going to a new place. Yes, some people did, but usually that's because there's been trauma or anxiety already created in the family environment, and that's become a coping mechanism. But most people already had that pathway that their body didn't do that. It just reset. It assessed, reset, assessed, reset. That pathway for most people has just become dormant. It's hidden, it's not activated anymore, and the body's learned all these new coping mechanisms to have a hyperactive nervous system and, create stress or anxiety or whatever we do is a coping mechanism, whether it's to keep ourselves small or, fear the unknown, or people call it self-sabotage. It's all a coping mechanism. It's all our body's way of navigating the unknown. And we learnt those things. We can relearn. The biggest thing is that as adults, our neuroplasticity in the brain is not as spongy as it was, or it wasn't, when we were kids. It was just up to the age of 7, we were just sponges and we just learnt things really easy. As adults, we actually need to be consistent. And that's why, for me, it's having simple processes, because time is one of those things that can create a lot of stress. Most people don't have a lot of time. We have so many things to manage in our everyday lives that when we get told, oh, we need to do all these things and they take hours, they just become a chore, and energetically you're already shut off. But if we can have simple tools that we can do in a few minutes, or, a couple of processes, for me, I do a process and I used to do 10 or 15 minutes in the morning, or I do one when my child went to sleep, and I just became consistent at those couple of things. Or in the shopping center, I would, if my head was going off, I'd use embodiment processes, to take myself into my body and out of my head, because I learned that my consciousness cannot be here and here. If I'm concentrating on tickling my hand, and feather tickling is something, when we almost touch our hands so softly and just creating pleasure and enjoying that tickle, we can't be here. So straight away, I'm just trying to tell my body to reset. Doesn't mean that my mind's not going to become active again as soon as I stop tickling, but it's training that. And that's the biggest thing as adults. We actually have to be consistent. Nothing's like a magic wand. Energy actually is really easy to move, and it wants to constantly be moving. It doesn't want to sit dormant. But our pathways and our patterns and our habits and all these things that we do, we're creatures of habit, are the ones that we need to be consistent at reprogramming.
Wow, that's lots to take in. Hi, Beth.
Yeah, there's a lot, but there's, where I'm at right now, there's a lot that's clicking in for me. So I'm really enjoying this conversation. Would you be happy to touch on a couple of your processes? I know just quickly then it was the feather touch, but could you sort of speak into those processes that you would lean on?
Yep, sure. Hang on just a second. My cat's, I don't know if you could hear the meowing, but my cat's actually been like circulating around the screen here, and she just stood on my keyboard and all this stuff popped up on my screen, and I was like, okay, stay calm.
And we went straight back into a process.
Yeah, my body's like, I'm like trying to push her out of the camera because she kept trying to walk in front of me, and just she'll sit here, and I'm like, no, away.
Yeah,
you know?
she wants to be in the moment.
She loves everything and anything energetic. So yeah. So for me, okay, so anything is embodiment, and but embodiment, people talk about breath, those things are really common stuff that you hear all the time. And I touch on those when I teach other people, because sometimes they don't know those tools, or the ones that I use that were simple, and how to come into those. But for me, because we're talking about energy as such, okay, so you've seen me at the beginning talking about this, that we rub this place, right? And there is a meridian system that is specifically in everybody around the nervous system, right? So every time we go into stress, this one activates. Most people that are in any type of illness and has disease, this system is overactive, and it's been overactive usually for a long time. It actually just doesn't turn off. And this is where we feel heavy. And for me, when I look at my clients, it was really interesting. A couple of years ago, I noticed that there was a change in this system itself, meaning that almost every client that walked in the door had this active system. When I first started my healings, I would be able to just read people's chakras, but they started walking in, and I was like, I actually can't read your chakras the way I used to, because the energy system, that this system was siphoning that energy. So the moment I actually calm that system, I can see the chakras again. I can see which ones are distorted and out of balance, instead of them just being all out of balance, right? And it was interesting that this all appeared when we had the collective pandemic thing happen, right? Because this became a collective stress, right? So collectively, everybody pretty much walked in the door with this stress system on. And I was like, right, this is interesting, because we are all energetically connected, right? So that was something I was like, okay, so every client then I teach this system to, right? Which literally, like I said, starts here, it kind of runs across the forehead, it goes into the temples, around the ears, it heads for the base of the head. So a lot of people complain that they feel like they got head, and they twist their neck, it goes down the shoulders, they complain that they got a lot of weight on the shoulders, or the shoulders are tense, right? And I mean, for me, I used to actually get a headache. I used to actually have sore points here, sore points there, like when I was stressed. As soon as I get stressed, I actually instantly can feel tension here. I instantly start having a couple of tender points if it's been active for a little bit longer, right? So our body's actually telling us. Our body's telling us where we need to bring attention to, where we need to start releasing the energy. So for me, I encourage all my clients that we put our hands literally across our forehead and holding our hands there. Now, our hands are all polarized. Everybody has energy and polarization in their hands, right? But we're also, when we start to create movement and pulling out, we're actually bringing blood back to the frontal lobe, right? So in a stress response, that blood kind of sends off into the body to release the cortisol and to release the adrenaline and all the things, right? And then eventually the energy comes up and we're in chaos, right? We've got this overactive mind, right? So what we're trying to do is tell the body, so if we're in severe stress responses and got things, but we're actually like, okay, I don't actually need to be stressing about this, but I notice my body is. For me, my phone would beep and my system would go off, because because of the experiences I had where I was receiving abuse through my phone. And then and it doesn't have to be that. A lot of people, it's like they turn on the computer and they have stress because they're on the computers for work all day, right? And they're stressed at work. I would hear a specific sound of a car and it would go off, and I was actually stunned when I acknowledged that one. I was like, whoa, like that's not even them, and I'm inside my house and so safe right now. Yeah. And my system's going off. So all day my phone would beep. It could be a friend telling me something amazing, but I'm in a stress response. My body was already triggered. And so I had to actually teach my body to not be stressed about those things anymore, right? So, and I started with doing this process where I put my hands on my forehead, and you do it really slow and taking those nice deep belly breaths. So really connecting to our breath is always important. We're slowing the breath down. Because in stress, we have short and sharper breaths, so usually much more in our chest, not in our belly. Our belly is less likely to move. So when we start to instigate those things, that is a natural response for the body in a calm state. So we encourage you to do those things as well. But you're putting pressure and you start to pull out. And I'll do it a little bit faster today because, you know, we obviously time is one of those valuable things that people stress about as well, right? But yeah, so we're basically, and over the eyebrows, some people will include their eyes a little bit because they find that they get heavy in their eyes as well. So listen to the body, but it's generally around this area. For me, it was always just holding just to below my eyebrows and pulling out. And basically we start to just pull out. And when we do that, we're bringing that blood back to the head. I get to my temples and I always stop. I make sure I take those big breaths, and then I start to move up and over the ears, and it's with pressure with the fingers around that place. Now I have my hands quite wide if you look, right? So I'm making sure I'm actually, you know, we can't sit there and go, am I getting that meridian line? Because your hands are actually quite wide. It's 100, these meridian lines are not big, right? So we're going over that point and heading for the base of the head. Again, I breathe. I always lift up a bit there because it gives me goosebumps. And every time I do this, my body actually gets goosebumps now because my body actually recognizes the system being reset. And I actually feel that for me, goosebumps are actually a pleasurable feeling, right? We all enjoy that. Someone's tickling us and things like that. And we get to that shoulders squeeze. I squeeze for a while until I just feel like I'm ready to let go. And then I flick out. And because that flicks the energy, and our heart is actually one of the only chakras that doesn't usually completely shut, right? But it can. But most people, it's still one of the ones that is slightly active. And then I just go back, and any of the points that I noticed that were sore, I will actually rub. They're actually acupressure points, right? So we now know exactly which acupoints are blocked by rubbing them. You're just bringing that energy back to those points, moving that blocked energy out, and then I would redo that whole process again. So another one that I would look at as well is that people that are in heightened states of stress, their energy systems become very parallel, so they're running straight. So you can see my cat's tail, right? So yeah, the heightened states of stress, we actually have this energy system that starts to run very, very, very narrow-minded, basically. It's like a highway, and this energy is just doing that. So we start to lose the natural crossover effect of the body, where the left and the right side start to talk properly, right? Or the right and the left. And so when we start to actually engage the body to start to even like we grab our top shoulder and move our arms all the way down to the opposite hip, right, that we actually start to tell the body that energy system, and that crossover starts to bring that energy back. Sometimes those systems, you know, been dormant for a while. So it might be the walking and touching your knee kind of thing. Yeah. So, you know, like we used to do that crossover effect. Anything that's a crossover can actually help really engage our energy systems as well. I guess for me too, it's always looking at, there's lots of things that I can share in this thing. So it's like micro-orbiting the energy, because when we're in stress, the energy doesn't want to move down the body. But also the spleen. The spleen is one of the biggest things in stress because it's supposed to metabolize the body's cortisol and adrenals, and it's basically a metabolizing system, right? So, and when we actually bring it back, engage it, it actually allows our body to receive more joy, right? It's actually, when we look at the energy clock, it's actually opposite to the triple warmer, so to the stress response one. So it's also going to be the one that's most depleted because it's polarized or energetically opposite to it. So it's the most affected, yet it's the one that helps our body break down all the chemicals that our body has in stress. And our cells transmit energy, right? So if they're weighed down with this toxic type of chemicals in the body, those cells are not being able to transmit energy properly. So how do we get our body to start metabolizing those chemicals that are in the body? And it's literally by tapping certain points on the body. So the spleen actually runs to the side of our body. It's like sort of in this kind of area. So we actually would be tapping into those things and bringing that energy back into the body. So yeah, they're just a couple of the tools that I would use, you know, and I share lots, but yeah, they're ones that I kind of commonly will talk to people about. Grounding. You can't be in a higher vibration if you're not grounded. And a lot of people scatter out of their body, right? So, you know, we so often sit in, you know, like when we do meditation and we visualize going into the ground and things like that. But sometimes the actual energy portals at the bottom of the feet are actually closed. So as much as we're trying to connect, we are actually not polarized to the earth anymore. And So by opening that energy up, and I know it sounds really crazy, but it actually is, it works, and it's been proven in thousands of people to improve the energy flow because we're grounded, is just using a stainless steel spoon on the bottom of our feet. Running that on the base of our feet will actually allow our body to polarize. We connect to the earth. It gives us another avenue for energy to move out, but we also receive the energy of the earth. And the earth's energy is actually very comforting, and it's healing, and it's nurturing. I mean, it's where we get our food from, and it's, you know, it's part of the human body. We are, to be here on earth, we are very much matter of the earth, similar matter, right? So we need to be connected to the earth and allow that energy to thing. A lot of people, I guess, look at raising their vibration and they think it's all about, you know, like love and spirituality and in the soul, and, you know, getting up into these higher chakras. And the actual process is moving down and grounding our spirit and soul into the body, but it can't get into the body if we're not grounded and if we haven't cleared those bottom chakras out.
Wow. And I think these processes are really simple. Like you can do them, you know, if you are in the shopping centers, or, you know, if you're, you know, in the car or walking, you know, walking to work. There's, you know, just simple things that you don't need to allocate, you know, 10 minutes, you know, or longer. You can do them in, you know, 2 or 3 minutes to reset and, you know, recharge your energetics.
Yeah. And I mean, there's lots of ones. Like I said, the feather touch was one of my favorite ones for the shopping center, because I mean, if I was sitting on my forehead, people might be like, what is she doing? You know, I show lots of other ones where we can really raise our vibration. But if we start raising our arms in the middle of a shopping center and doing certain processes, people are going to start to think we're crazy, right? So it's not what we want. But yeah, I teach people also other tools that allow us, that we can just do in public, and people won't even know that we're doing them in that moment. And that's really powerful. Even that connection of breath and intention, you know, we really need to have intention to release, you know. So it's like, as we breathe out, we're releasing. As we breathe in, we're receiving. You know, what things can you do in your everyday life that allows that? How can we be more present as well? You know, washing our dishes, feel the water, get in the shower, feel the water. You know, I used to do shower meditations all the time. You know, there's just so many processes that we can use to reconnect back into the body and to feel good again.
Yeah, nice.
So I have a question just on that. While listening to you, energy, for me, what is energy? I wanted to understand. So, like, you know, sometimes you don't feel energetic, you don't feel like doing something, or don't feel like thinking, or just lying down. So that moment, people may say, oh, you don't have energy to do anything because you're just doing and lying down, right? That's one part. Second part, you want to boost your energy. So you are energetic, but now you want to do more. And so you want to be energetic. So then again, you want to enhance your energy. When you compare these things that humans we face, no energy, then expansion of energy. So what exactly then people say, oh, do this and do that. So you are showing us the good techniques, what we do, which you can do without going anywhere or seeking professional help. In terms of that, like people go to gym. So why do they go to gym? Is people tell them you can get more energy, you can get more this and more that, whatever, you know. How would you compare that with, does that really gives energy when you go to gym? Or is it just the techniques that you think? Well, with that, just
there's a chemical response when we exercise, right? So and I go into a lot of that. The chemistry and the biology is very important to understand that, because those chemicals are what work with our cells, right? So going to the gym is one of those things that, one, we release certain hormones into the body which can make us feel better, right? It also, we're exercising. If we're, you know, for me, I always went to guided classes because I didn't want to be in my head. And if I was sitting on an exercise bike, I could easily be in my head. So I'd go to somewhere that would challenge my body. So I was actually doing it. But movement, right? As a whole, energy likes movement. And so that breath, sound, and movement. Now, when we're exercising, we're moving. And so having those tools to actually continue to move the body is really, really powerful, right? So, yeah. So, you know, and for me, exercise where you're stretching, like say I go to yoga, and I, you know, some yogas I find are much better than others by all means, but we're actually, some of those things are designed to actually line our body up so the energy is moving, but we're actually moving, and or I used to do balance, and it would literally, like, I'd visualize moving energy through those things, right? So they do help 100%, and I talk into that a little bit as well. So because I've got that program, I've actually got someone that's a yoga teacher coming in and sharing tools that are specifically around the stress energetics and processes of releasing, and things like that. But I also will go into the chemistry side of it and why we do certain things and what the benefits are that to us and how that's going to raise our vibration, because if we look at disease, most cancer, it has to have an environment for it to grow and separate itself from your human being. Like, it's an individual, cancer becomes its own sort of own substance or own life force within it, in the body, right? It separates itself, and it needed a certain compound in its environment to sit there. So whether it's blocked energy or whether it's those chemicals from stress that have been constantly put into the body, or chemicals through what we eat, can obviously create that too. So I kind of went off track a little bit there, but it gives you the idea that moving that energy and moving and changing the composition of our cells change our body's way of healing, its vibration and its capacity to feel better.
Yeah, because how, like, one gym is one thing, like movement, you said. So movement is important for our energy. And then the other part is the intake in your body, which is the diet or the food that you get. That also creates energy. And then that's where you create those blissful moments, which we are talking about, from stress to bliss. So when you eat something, you get blissed. Or when you move something, then you get bliss. You feel good about your...
Completely.
Yeah.
And that's why I actually bring in that diet and nutrition as well aspect as well, because there's a huge part of the things that we eat and the vibration bases of those foods as well. And they are also going to change our energy, So there's energetics. When we look at energy, there's lots of components that come into this system. The thing is I guess when we look at it, most people will tell you go and exercise. Most people will tell you go and get in the sun. Most people will tell you go connect to your breath. They don't give you the awareness of why these things are important. And
exactly. Yeah, you're so right on that.
And then the energetics of that, everything's energy. For that energy to flow, you want to feel better, you need to have a higher frequency, you need to have a higher vibration. How do we obtain that higher vibration? And it can be through mass amounts of things. Doesn't mean that I don't eat lower vibrational foods sometimes, it doesn't mean, that sometimes I do need to detox. It's part of being human, but I'll still enjoy eating some of that stuff as well, right? And that releases yummy chemicals in my body at the same time, so yes, I enjoyed ice cream last night, sometimes my body disagrees with it later, but I enjoyed it in the moment. So it's all those things that we start to look at as well. So as well as the pathways, but that is something that most people aren't aware of, that there is energy circuits that are always going off, and why do we need to do these things to improve the energy?
Yeah, I think it's really important what you just touched on then, that, like, it's being present and removing the judgment from, from the situation. If you are enjoying ice cream, remove the judgment and charge that ice cream with high vibe energy. And then that's going to, be absorbed as you're eating it, rather than fueling the ice cream with negative judgment, because then as you absorb it, you're just... and then your body rejects it later,
Definitely. And, I've even heard, like, people put, do Reiki on their water, or, put positive vibes. You can sit there, and I teach energy bowls, where we connect to our heart and create alpha brainwaves and can hold that energy, and we can send it to anything. If we love our food, and just, going back to those old commandments that were like, when we show, appreciation for the food in front of us. And, so many people forget those things anymore. They don't have that gratitude, or being thankful. That itself creates energy, certain frequencies in the body, and can shift us to different brainwave states, but also can release different chemicals into the body that make our body feel good, so that gratitude can be super powerful as well. So, yeah,
definitely.
That's beautifully said, because that's exactly what I was saying, what Beck said already, that, live in the moment. So this is something which you stressed on. That creates good energy because you are enjoying that moment. And it doesn't matter after you feel guilt or shame, but that's the moment that you have with you to all the time increase your energy levels. And this is something lasts for. So what do you say, like, when you have these blissful moments, how turnaround time of our energy in our body? The turnaround time, we say that I'm tired now, I got to go to bed, I'm sleeping now, right? So when we are sleeping, I don't know what happens to our energy, but you can touch on that a little bit. But let me ask you this, like, what's the turnaround time for energy? Like, we need to do this often, very often. Like gym, you don't go every often, but then when you go, you feel good. But then how often do you, recreate this upgrade? You were talking about the upgrading yourself, the energy. How do you upgrade that each time?
I don't think that we can put a specific time on how long somebody takes.
Is there a cycle? Is there a cycle?
Oh, there is a cycle. So like I was saying earlier, that there's an energy cycle of the body, and that's at 24 hours. So the meridian systems work in connecting to every organ. Like our nervous system, it's generally about 12 or 13 hours for the vagus nerve from the bottom of the spine to the top of the spine. I actually do certain meditations that speed that process up. So we move the cellular memory and we can move the cellular trauma out of the body. But those processes do take more time, right? Because we actually have to go into a little bit of a guided meditation and do breath and squeezing and movement of the body to move that, because there's certain, where we move, like squeeze certain muscles, there's certain movements in the spine that will actually push that fluid up. And so we can speed processes up. But everyone, I guess, depends on what frequency they're at as well, and how many blocks do they have in their body, and how are they really trusting in this, and they're really wanting it, because desire releases a lot of good chemicals into the body as well. Are they appreciating the little steps on the way? Again, they're releasing more stuff. People that have resistance to these things or don't believe and are kind of in more of that mindset will probably take longer. If they have more blocks in the body, they're going to need more processes to get that energy flowing. And that's why you can't go, yeah, that's going to work. I mean, in the sense that we can be tired, there's certain points on the body that we can activate and touch that can bring energy to the body. For instance, through the day, the energy systems will be running forward, as for an example, will be running one way, and at night they'll be moving backwards. But if we were, say, in a heightened stress response, we wake up in the morning, and as soon as we get up and we're thinking about all the chaos of our lives and all the things that upset us, it's like we're walking down a hallway, turning on every single light, turning on every single power point, but that house is run on a power, like a battery, right? And you've now just siphoned all the energy out of that battery, and now you're going into deficits. If you do that to the body too many times, you're going to get sick, right? So how do we stop yourself from turning on all those light switches? Some people will only turn on some of the light switches. But if we do certain processes where it could be the gratitude and tapping certain energies, and for me, like we have so many chores to do, and everyone's like, oh, I've got all these things. We'll say, like I said, the good one is when we're washing the dishes, feel the bubbles, feel the water, turn on your favorite song while you're doing it for a minute and sing your favorite song. All of a sudden, you're giving your body back energy because you're raising your vibration in the presence of feeling those joyful, those pleasurable things, Feel that water, be connected to it for a minute instead of being in the head and thinking, oh, this is another chore, and oh, now I've got to do this. It actually takes us longer to complete any task when we're in stress, because we actually are less engaged in it. We're less productive because our mind it's focusing on all these other things as well, right? So to be more productive, the more present we are and the more joy we bring in and more happiness, all of a sudden we'll be like, we get answers and shortcuts, and we can start kind of cutting corners that still make that thing work, right? And we're less, I know when I was in stress, doing some of the simplest of tasks, feeding my children and making dinner, it just took so long because I wasn't with what I was doing anymore. I was just in this other vibration. So
just on that, I wanted to pick a brain. I know we don't have much time, but I want to still touch with your half a minute or 1 minute. That's if you can answer this, and we can probably go more into detail in our next episode, because what I think is a very good resonation I'm getting from this energy, and I'm getting energy to think more about this topic. I wanted to touch, you talked about daylight. You talked about, during the day, we create energy, or we have certain energy. How does the source of energy, which we call everyone in the universe, say sun is the source of energy? So that's why we say in the morning we are more energetic, or when we go out or take the vitamin and all that. Then the other moonlight, there is another light, moon, and then there is another starlight. Every light gives us some or the other kind of energy. I feel that way. For kids, they love the stars, they stare at the stars, it's a different energy. That's why we can't just stop them at that point. So in that regard, this is a fascinating topic. Again, it comes to the present living, it comes to the spiritual awakening, it comes to the understanding and acceptance of the universe, the tools that we have around us to create and recreate energies automatically, subconsciously, by default. But then you were talking more about also conscious energy that can be created, so which is good. So what important these elements of galaxies play into this human journey of energy? I know we can't answer this in 1 minute, but just touch on it. Like, is it important? Is it vital for our human existence in that regard?
It's massive. When we go into those, that's a whole nother vortex of conversation. And I mean, we have a human blueprint, right? We came here to be a certain person. I came here to be Kelly, and my name is spelled differently with an I, for instance. So I have a different energetics. And I was born under certain stars and moons, and and then there's that we can go into the gene keys or the human design, and they're all based on astrology and things like that. So they give us certain things that are also our strengths and our weaknesses, and they give us our direction of life. So, when I started to go into this path of healing, I started to connect to my true self, and that allowed me to find more bliss, because I actually started to learn about what things were actually really aligned to me, what things did I need to work with, what things were actually just naturally my shadows, and we all have those things, right? And became less judgmental about those things, but learned how to deal and work with those things. When we look at the moon, for instance, the moon has a cycle, and just like we do, we all have cycles. So we have times where we're in healing and times where we're in expansion, or times that we're in a contraction. The moons can also really change those things too. I know certain moons will actually make me more emotional. My children will become more emotional, right? And so they affect us because we are connected to the greater consciousness, right? They might affect some people more than other people because we have certain energetic alignments to those things, right? So I have certain friends that might also be emotionally triggered under some moons like I am, and others that weren't. I have witnessed as well that some moons, might trigger feminine or females more. And then the next moon would come in and it'd be my male friends who work in spirituality. And they're like, oh, and I'm like, oh, I feel great this month, And so that is a whole nother thing, like we are connected to something beyond our understanding, and some people really can talk about astrology much better than I can, but as the gist of things, everything has an impact. So the people that we are around also, same thing, can have an impact on our energy, and so does the moon, so does where our where we are rotating on the earth, when we were born. All of that affects the vibration in which we came here to. I still like the idea. And for me, it was one of my first things that I really dived into was immersion into myself, but it was all through self-regulation of my nervous system and my spirituality and my intuition. All of that needed me to be able to manage my nervous system. And, if we want to be our most vibrant and blissful and ecstatic states, we need to know who we are. We need to know what makes us tick, what triggers us. And that all comes through when we were born, through what moons and stars. But I didn't even go necessarily into that at first. I kind of looked at more from my values and more on those aspects of who is Kelly, and what things were my natural triggers, and getting to know myself on just a normal everyday human level. And then eventually I started getting more interested on a higher level of human dynamics.
No, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
I didn't wanted to mean to elaborate this question because this was a different topic altogether. But you were talking passionately, which is quite understandable. And that means we can definitely do this topic again. So all the listeners who are listening, this is amazing topic. As you can hear from Kelli, what she said about energetics and what she's talked about stress. And we all go through this whole emotional changes in our life. So she has given some simple tips. And first thing I take information from here is recognize yourself and just be in the present. That's the key message, I would say, and do everything and anything in that moment, because that's what it will create energy for you to move again and to move forward. So that's my final kind of understanding from this topic. I go over to Beck to close this whole topic, and then we'll come back once again with a different topic altogether, and we will dwell into this.
Yeah, definitely. I look forward to chatting more on and I guess just picking your brain. There's a lot there, Kelly, that we can explore. And not just on the energetics or the stress energetics. There's a lot of juicy topics there that you've explained yourself that we can unravel. But today there's a lot. There's the processes that we can just lean on when we're in the moment. But also for me, it was a big thing recognizing how your body reacts to different situations, and then also just being kind to allow that energy to shift. And sort of when you are faced with different scenarios, to just remember that it's only a fleeting moment and that the energy will shift if you allow it to. Like once we get stuck, the energy is going to just continue to pile on and be stuck and stuck and stuck. But if we stay present and allow that energy to move through, and by doing simple processes, or when we're ready to go deeper into lengthier processes. So today's been really beneficial for me where I'm at right now. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So my final message to all the listeners is, if you want to remove stress, please contact Kelli. Please contact us. And what Kelli can do is create energy for you. She can give tips. She can do little things that can increase your energy levels. And everybody has stress, but everybody needs to create energy to remove the stress. So that's why this topic really will resonate with a lot of people, resonated with me, because if I have to remove stress, I have to do some certain things consciously to gain that energy. Is that what it is? That's it. So that's it for me. And finally, Kelli, do you want to say final word to the one short word to the listeners?
Well, thank you guys for allowing me to share something that I'm super passionate about. Like I said, it's a subject that's very close to my heart. And, for me, it is serving people to help them start to live a better, more happier, and eventually get to a blissful life, because I think everybody deserves to be able to get there. And, sometimes we just need that guidance. We need those tools. We need that understanding. We also need to know that what we're going through is actually part of the process and it's normal, right? And that's sometimes makes us feel more comfortable instead of like questioning ourselves. So it's something that I'm very passionate about, is helping people be able to find themselves again and find joy in life. So if they want any help, they can reach out to me. I'm at Energetically Inspired. So I have got programs that help with this. I do one-on-ones, and I'm always here sharing tools and tips and things on my YouTube or TikTok or Facebook, or, I'm always sharing some sort of insight on different topics, whether it's spirituality or awakening or, nervous system, or, there's so much there. But I'd love for you guys to jump on and check it out.
No, thank you so much, Kelli. You have really light up the room with energy, full of energy, and we are really energetic now to do a next topic. But until then, we will create another energy. Goodbye from me and from everyone, and we will come back once again. Thanks so much, Kelli.
You're welcome. Thanks, guys.